But I do think it's perfectly acceptable to wonder out loud what's going on and wonder out loud just how far the Carolina Hurricanes are going to go in this postseason. And it's okay to wonder if they're going to blow it with the Metro Division. 2 weeks ago, I forgot the game that they lost, but it was one of those, like, how'd you lose to this team situation? I think it was Detroit. It was the Alex Nedeljkovic shutout, right?
On the dunk, at the buzzer.
At the buzzer, right? And there was this, I'm like, they got 2 games in hand, or 1 game in hand. They're fine. There's plenty of season left. It'll be fine. They'll correct themselves. But I think after last night, with 2 games to go, 1 point ahead of the New Jersey Devils, they're both at 80 games. It's entirely possible that the Canes blow the Metro Division. And you can justify it all you want and say that, well, the Eastern Conference is difficult. I mean, look what Boston is doing. Well, hold on. If we can make jokes about the Boston Bruins being the best team in the league, and we see what usually happens with the best team in the league, then we can't sit here and act as though you don't want to put yourself in the best position to see the Boston Bruins when you want to see the Boston Bruins in the playoffs. And I feel like that's what's really going on with the Canes right now. And the other thing that I would say that would cause alarm for the Carolina Hurricanes is the way that Rod Brind'Amour is talking about the team. He finally called him out. Typically, the head coach does a good job of just kind of keeping an even keel. What did he do last night, Joe?
I was going to say, it doesn't really matter what we think. It's what Rod thinks.
So here's Rod in the post game last night getting asked a couple questions. This one I thought was most interesting was strictly about not tiptoeing around the game. You got to be about it. It's about the process. Rod is a process guy. Play the way that you're supposed to play. Good things will happen to you. You can lose a game but still be happy with the way that you played because the puck bounced a funny way. He did not like how they played last night.
I mean, we're not good enough to just kind of tiptoe around in the game. We got to come out hard. That's what makes us, a good team. And I just didn't like the intensity at which we were playing the game, and it showed. Obviously, take a couple breathers on the ice, and that leaves guys open. That's really all it is. It's taking that little breath here and there, and like I say, you play a good team. As soon as you give them a little room, it's boom, and it's in your net. And now we're fighting, trying to get back. And we always put a good effort in, but it's those little breaths we're taking that's got to get out of our game.
That's Rod Brind'Amour after the loss to Ottawa last night. He was asked what were the difference makers in last night's loss.
Well, we started this terribly. Never really got going at all. I give the other team a lot of credit. They played a real good game, but we were just in quicksand. And other than our penalty kill, which those guys did a great job. So you're looking for a positive. That's one of the best power plays in the league, and we were working really hard there. The rest of the game was pretty much trash, to be honest with you.
He was pretty much trash. That's Rod Brind'Amour last night.
Not mincing words there.
No.
And you know what? I think you're right to have the reaction to the Detroit game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We always about the process.
Yeah.
Honored our process. We were there. Outplayed them.
Hey, look,
we had more chances. We did this.
As you joked after that game, I mean, how many times have the Canes been on the other side of some miraculous goal?
Sure.
Or, pulling it out in the end because they never quit, right?
Yeah, again.
You can live with it.
The twin problems for the Canes were on full display in the third period of this game. Whether the game was meaningless or meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And we could sit here and debate this. We did the same thing last year. Well, what does the last month of the regular season mean? And I would say to you, and I was concerned last year, those concerns came to be true.
Yeah.
Because they were not playing at the top of their game. I hear you about the Panthers. Last year, the Florida Panthers were running hot,
mm-hmm.
and a goalie took them out.
Yeah.
Tampa took them out. So there is a certain voodoo to the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, no doubt. But if you're the Canes, the twin concerns remain the same. Your power play is not good enough.
No.
And your goaltending in the playoffs, you don't necessarily have to win games with your goalie, but you can't lose games because of your goalie.
Yeah.
And at some point, your goalie just has to be at least as good as the other team's goalie. And I think you can look through the last few years and say the Canes really have never had the advantage in goal. They've been able to win games by their style,
mm-hmm.
the puck possession, the defense, the chances, getting the chances on the other team. But even going back to the pandemic, the Central Division year where they played Nashville and our guy head over Juicy Soros, and you're looking at him, you're going, wait a second now, he's really good. And the Canes ran into him again this week too.
Yeah,
and I thought Ottawa's goalie was good last night, made the plays and the saves that he needed to on the 5-on-3. Because I thought the Canes were, to the Canes' credit, they generated chances on the 5-on-3.
And that's where I start getting mad.
They just didn't score on the 5-on-3. And part of that is the other team's goalie.
Well, okay.
Right? And you have to give some of the credit to the other team's goalie at some point,
okay.
right?
Well, here's the consistency, though. Well, their goalie played really well.
That's fair.
When you keep hearing, well, their goalie just played well
I
against
know,
us
and
tonight.
I just said the same thing about Nashville. Okay, You're right.
All right. It's a conversation that we have with our friends, right? It's like my brother-in-law, right? My brother-in-law went through a phase where he dated a bunch of people, and every single one of them was a psycho. I mean, total psycho. Total psycho. I'm like, Brian, have you ever stopped and thought that
there's one constant?
There's a constant here.
It's not the psycho.
There's and shout out to Taylor Swift. She finally put out a song that nailed it. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. And that's where I am with the Carolina Hurricanes. Their inability to cash in their chances is on them, not the goalie who suddenly plays well against the Canes every single time. You generate a bunch of chances. Great. But you don't have dudes. And I know that sounds real knuckle draggy. It sounds real just kind of base level sports, but we joked about it. We have our noted hockey expert, Sidney Lowe, former NC State basketball coach, national champion, who used to say your best players have to be your best players. But here's the problem. We might like Sebastian Aho. We might like Andrei Svechnikov. We might like Marty Necas. But we haven't seen them consistently put the hammer down.
You dropped one, too, there. Teuvo Teravainen.
And Teravainen. But Teravainen, I feel like, has been, who knows where he's been most of the season. So I don't have the belief in the Carolina Hurricanes that their best players are going to put the hammer down when it's time.
And that is basically what Rod is saying there when he talks about the way that they have to play.
Yes.
He knows the way that they have to play.
Yes.
And he has gotten a lot out of that way that they play with their forechecking system. Please don't misunderstand what we're saying.
Yeah.
What they've done and the success that they've had in the regular season is remarkable.
It's awesome.
Think of it this way. They won a game. I want you to imagine this. They won a game where a guy came out of the stands in his 40s and played goal, and they won an NHL regular season game. This is the equivalent.
And settled down because, remember, he gave one up early as expected.
This is the equivalent of an NFL team losing their quarterback, somebody coming out of the stands who once played, let's just say D2 football, and led your team or was a part of your team's win in an NFL game.
Yeah.
Would we still not be writing songs and telling stories?
We still
if
are.
That happened. No, but if that happened in the NFL.
Oh, no. It wouldn't. There would be 8 movies already.
Already?
Yes, 8 movies
But
already.
it happened in the NHL. And yes, while I'm not trying to shortchange David Ayers for the work that he did, how many shots after the first did he really face?
And that's where...
Because of the game of key-boy that the Canes are able to play with their defense, and that's the style. But you're asking a lot of that defense to win games when last night, we saw this with Freddie Anderson, while the Ottawa goalie is playing really well on a 5-on-3 and making plays that he needed to make for his team to remain in that game, there's a break that goes the other way, and all of a sudden, it's Claude Giroux, and I get it. He's a really good player.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, you look up, and it's like, oh, he just kind of flipped it into the back of the net, and you're going, well, where was the Canes goalie?
Right.
Why wasn't he making the same plays that his counterpart was making for Ottawa? That's the frustration for the Canes. That's the true frustration right there.
It is, and that's where, look, it's not like Rod Brindamore and the coaching staff don't know what their problems are. And the playoffs are going to be all about mitigating the weaknesses. Special teams and goaltending are going to be the difference makers in every playoff series.
Always.
No crap the magazine exclusive. It's like when we talk about the NCAA tournament. The guard play is really making a difference in this game. Wow, right?
Crazy, doctor.
So in the NHL, yeah, man, special teams and goaltending. And right now, the Carolina Hurricanes are missing the consistent goaltending. And in terms of special teams, they're really good on the penalty kill, but they're not very good.
Which is helpful.
Which is helpful, but they're not very good in generating their own offensive chances on the power play. And at this point, it is what it is.
It's not so much chances as like actually scoring. And that's where I will say the loss of Svechnikov, the loss or the never was of Max Pacioretty. Like those were the Svechnikov they give the long-term deal to.
Yeah.
Right? and you're investing in that player. You're saying you're one of our cornerstones. Pacioretty is a great move that they made where they gave up. We don't even know yet because it's future considerations, but it's obviously not going to be much more than a middle round draft pick, right? Yeah. I mean, at most, it's a third round pick, it looks like. So you made a really shrewd, smart move. And unfortunately for them, Max Pacioretty gets hurt in the offseason. Achilles injury, comes back, plays 5 games, another injury, and you're like, there's not a lot you can do about that. No. And I get what you're saying. It happened before the trade deadline. There were still moves to be made. If I'm the Canes, I'm not willing to give up Seth Jarvis for a Timo Meier, let's say. And when you ultimately look at the price that was paid by everyone other than the Rangers, and it's always, with me, gotten back to the Rangers.
Of course.
Because that's the team who beat them last year. They do have the solid goalie.
They do.
They have one of the 3 best in the world. And if you don't have one of those, then you do have to stack those other parts of your roster. I thought the Rangers made some smart moves at the deadline. They didn't overpay like the Devils did. They didn't overpay like Tampa did. So I look at that and I go, you got to understand who you're competing with. It's not just Boston. It's not just the teams that you're immediately, in your division. It's the Rangers.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who knocked you out last year. And quite frankly, they were better than the Rangers last year. And I would be mad, me and how I keep markers. The Canes have a marker with the Rangers right now. They owe them. I mean, that's what it is.
Oh,
pure and simple.
In the same way that they owed Boston,
and they got that one back.
And they got that one back. And we talked about this with Luke DeCock yesterday from the News and Observer. The Boston Bruins are the one team that the Canes know they can get past. They know they can beat them. They know the deal with them. It's the Rangers that are the problem now, and you see the shift in the team that's going to give them problems, just like Boston used to give them a bunch of problems. One last note on the power play, right? And people want to bang on the coaching staff and things like that, and this gets back to my overall point in that hockey is not some sort of like special, different unicorn of a sport. When I hear people complaining about the coaching staff when it comes to the power play, as though they're not using a system to generate opportunities. Which they do.
As if you can change the setting on EA NHL 99 where I'm going to go from the umbrella to the triangle.
So I see, like Corey Lavalette, bless him, from North State Journal Athletic, has been dealing with like dopes who are like, well, why aren't you asking Rod about the power play? Like, what, you don't think Rod understands like the issue with the power play? They're not trying to work on that? You know what it reminds me of? Well, why is Wojo coaching the big men? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that was a throwback.
Right? No, but it illustrates my point.
What does he know about playing?
What does he know about coaching big men? He's Wojciechowski. Like, it's the same thing. Or like with Roy Williams and timeouts. He's like, a timeout would have been really good. Like, okay, right? So, of course they know the power play is a problem. Of course they're trying to work on making it work with opportunities, and they generate the opportunities. There's one thing that's the same, and it's ultimately the kind of players they're bringing in, and they're trying to outsmart the room. They're trying to win on every deal. They're trying to I use analytics, not in a dismissive way, but they're really trying to find those market inefficiencies and then just flex it on you. And to their credit, it really has worked well in the regular season the last 5 years. But when it comes to the playoffs, those market inefficiencies eventually catch up to you. And while you might have won in the regular season, you need the guys. You need a Timo Meier to bury it, okay? You know why Boston was such a tough out for them even last year and it went to 7 games? Because they were older, but they still have the guys who will make you pay for those mistakes. So that's what Rod is absolutely right about. You can't take a shift off. You can't take a breath. That's what they're built to do. They have to play like this. He's right. They can't tiptoe around. You got to play like they did against Tampa a couple weeks ago.
Never even mind Boston.
Every single game.
Look at Buffalo's goal scoring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, Buffalo has that goal scoring because they were
terrible. They're terrible.
They had top 3-5 picks in the draft.
The Canes have positioned themselves to have a very thin margin for error when it comes to the postseason. Yeah. It's as simple as that. If they have one little mistake, a miscue on defense, or Freddie Anderson lets in a soft one, or Antti Ranta lets in a soft one, it really shows you their margin for error. And the reason why is because of how they've decided to build themselves, which, again, great for the regular season. But I do wish that at some point they would add to what's already made them great and then add a finisher, a true finisher